My name is Elena Robert. I'm 45 years old. For 20 years, I thought I understood what love meant. Mark, my husband, was everything a woman could hope for: calm, patient, dependable. We built our world from small things: morning coffee, shared laughter, holding hands on walks after dinner. But sometimes, even the quietest homes hide the loudest secrets. Every month, without fail, Mark sent money to a woman he said was his sister. $25,000. Always the same amount. He never missed a month, not even when things were tight. And when I asked, he would say, "She needs help, Elena. She's family." That word family used to make me feel warm. But soon, it began to sound like a wall I wasn't allowed to climb. At first, I didn't question it. We all have people we care for. But one night, I woke up around 2 in the morning. The bed beside me was empty. I found Mark in the living room, sitting in the dark, phone light on his face. His eyes were wet. When I asked what was wrong, he smiled that same gentle smile and said, "Go back to bed." But the way he looked at that phone, it wasn't worry. It was guilt. That night, something inside me changed. It was small, like a whisper at first, but it was the beginning of doubt. He said it was nothing. But nothing has a way of growing teeth when you ignore it. A few days later, I saw a message flash on his phone. The name said Clara. I'd never heard of her before. He quickly turned the screen off and said it was work. But something about the way his hands trembled told me otherwise. If you're still watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Your likes and comments help me see you're still with me in this story. I tried to forget about it. I told myself love means trust. But trust started to feel like blindness. I began to notice the little things. How he kept his phone face down. How he suddenly started working late. And how he never mentioned his sister anymore. Almost like he wanted her to disappear from conversation completely. He said her name once, softly. "Clara's having a hard time." I asked, "Can I call her? Maybe I can help." He froze just for a second, then said, "No, she's private." That word again, private. But what kind of family hides like that? I started writing down things I noticed, not because I wanted to spy on him, but because I needed to make sense of what was happening. The transfers, the messages, the late nights. Each line I wrote made my stomach twist tighter. One night, while cleaning the bedroom, I found a small box in his drawer. Inside was a photo of a woman early 40s, brown hair, green eyes. She was holding a little boy, maybe 5 years old. The back of the photo said, "For Mark always." No date, no signature. Just that. My heart dropped. I sat on the floor, holding the picture like it might explain itself. But it didn't. All I could hear was the sound of my own breathing. That night, I lay awake beside him. He slept soundly, peacefully, like someone who had nothing to hide. And I just stared at the ceiling, wondering what kind of woman this Clara was, why she meant so much, and what exactly always meant between them. The next morning, I told Mark I was going to visit my sister in another city. He didn't ask questions, didn't even look up from his coffee. He just said, "Take your time." That was it. But something in his tone, calm, flat, unbothered, made me realize he didn't think I'd ever doubt him. He trusted that I'd always believe his story. And maybe that's what hurt the most. Because I still loved him. And yet, some part of me knew the love I was protecting might not be real anymore. That was the day I decided to find Clara. And the truth that had been hiding behind Mark's quiet smile. I didn't tell anyone where I was going that morning. The house was quiet. Almost too quiet. Mark had already left for work, his coffee cup still on the table, half empty. I stood there for a long moment, staring at that cup. It felt like he'd left a piece of himself behind, calm, careless, untouched. I wanted to smash it, just to hear something break. Instead, I picked up my bag and left. The drive was long. 5 hours on the road that felt like forever. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter with every mile. I wasn't sure what I was expecting to find. Maybe I wanted to prove myself wrong, to come home and laugh about how paranoid I'd been. But deep down, a quiet voice told me I already knew. The air outside the city was cleaner, the kind that smells like rain and dust. As I passed through smaller towns, I watched strangers walking hand in hand, smiling, going about their days. They looked like normal people, with normal problems, not like me. I felt like a stranger in my own skin. By the time I reached the town where Clara lived, it was already afternoon. The streets were narrow, lined with small houses that looked the same. I parked a little away and sat for a while, watching the neighborhood. Kids rode bicycles, dogs barked from behind fences. It was so peaceful that it made my chest hurt. I checked the address I had written down. It was from one of Mark's bank transfers. The name and number matched this place. My palms were sweating. I told myself I could still turn back. I could drive home, pretend I never came. But then I thought of all the nights I'd spent wondering, and I knew I couldn't live with another lie. When I finally walked up to the gate, my knees felt weak. There were flowers by the door, bright and alive, the kind I used to keep on our porch before I stopped caring. I rang the bell, and after a moment, a woman opened the door. She looked exactly like the photo I found in Mark's drawer. Same soft brown hair, same green eyes, same quiet smile. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. She looked surprised, but not alarmed. "Hello?" she said, her voice light, polite. I forced a smile. "Hi, are you Clara?" She nodded. "Yes. Can I help you?" My heart raced so fast I thought she could hear it. "I'm a friend of Mark's," I said. Her expression changed slightly, not shocked, just softer. She hesitated, then smiled again. "Oh, you must be Elena." The sound of my name on her lips made my stomach twist. How did she know who I was? I tried to stay calm. "Yes," I said quietly. She opened the door wider. "Please, come in." The house smelled like cinnamon and coffee. It was warm, lived in, full of life. Toys were scattered on the floor, a soft blanket draped over the couch. There were pictures on the walls, Clara, and the same little boy from the photo, smiling at the camera. But there was another picture, too, half hidden behind a vase. Mark, standing beside them. My throat went dry. I looked at Clara, pretending not to notice. She poured coffee, asked about my trip, about Mark, about the city. Her voice was calm, careful, but her eyes kept studying me like she was afraid of something. I sipped the coffee, my hands trembling. It was sweet, almost too sweet. The kind of coffee Mark used to make for me when he wanted to apologize. I asked her how long she had known Mark. She paused for a moment before answering. "A long time," she said. "We've been close for years." The way she said close, soft, personal cut through me. I tried to smile. He never talks much about his family. She looked down, then said quietly, "He doesn't like mixing things. He keeps his life with you. Separate." Her voice cracked a little on that last word. That's when I knew. I didn't need anyone to tell me. I felt it in the space between us, in the way her hands shook, in the way her voice softened when she said his name. I looked around again, pretending to admire the room. There were small signs everywhere, Mark's watch on the table, his jacket hanging on a chair, his favorite brand of cologne on the shelf. It was all there, like he lived 2 lives without ever missing a beat. For a moment, I couldn't hear anything but my heartbeat. Clara noticed I had gone quiet. She tried to smile again, but her eyes were wet. "He didn't want you to know," she said softly. "He said it would only hurt you." I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her why, but instead, I just nodded. Because what could I say? I looked at the little boy in one of the pictures. Is he? She didn't answer right away. Then she nodded slowly. Yes. That one word broke something in me. I felt it like glass shattering inside my chest. I stood up, pretending to look at the photo closer. My fingers touched the frame Mark's arm around Clara, the boy between them, all of them smiling like a perfect family. My world blurred. I blinked back tears before she could see. He looks like him, I whispered. Clara nodded. Everyone says that. I couldn't stay any longer. I set the cup down, thanked her for the coffee, and said I had to go. She didn't try to stop me. She just stood there by the door, watching me the same way Mark used to when I left for work, calm, quiet, hiding something deep. When I stepped outside, the sunlight felt too bright. My head buzzed. I didn't remember walking back to the car. I just sat behind the wheel, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My face looked older, like the truth had aged me in seconds. I started the engine, but I couldn't drive. My hands were shaking too much. I let the car idle while I cried. Not loud, just the kind of crying that doesn't make a sound. The kind that sits in your throat and burns. I thought about the years, all the dinners, all the mornings, all the times I believed him. 20 years of trust, undone in one afternoon. When I finally pulled myself together, I looked back at the house one more time. Clara was standing at the window, holding the boy. She didn't wave, neither did I. The road home felt longer. Every mile felt heavier. The silence in the car was unbearable. I turned on the radio just to drown out my thoughts, but even the music sounded empty. I kept replaying her words in my head. He didn't want you to know. Somewhere deep down, I knew she wasn't cruel. Maybe she loved him just like I did. Maybe she believed whatever lie he told her. But that didn't make it hurt less. When I reached the city, it was already dark. I parked outside our house, but I didn't go in right away. I just sat there, staring at the lights in the window. Mark was home. I could see his shadow move behind the curtain. For a moment, I thought about driving away. Just keep going, never look back, but I didn't. I got out, walked to the door, and opened it. He looked up from the couch, surprised but calm. "You're home early," he said. I looked at him, really looked. The man I thought I knew, sitting there like nothing happened. And I realized I didn't have the strength to confront him. Not yet. So I just said, "Yeah, the trip was shorter than I thought." He smiled and nodded. "Good. Dinner's on the stove." I walked past him without saying another word. Upstairs, I closed the bedroom door and sat on the edge of the bed. My body felt heavy, my chest hollow. I took off my wedding ring and placed it on the nightstand. It left a pale mark on my finger, a small circle that used to mean forever. I stared at it for a long time. Then I whispered, "I found her, Mark. And I found you too." That night, I didn't sleep. I just listened to the sound of the clock ticking, counting every second that used to belong to us. I went looking for answers, but what I found was something else entirely. A truth that would never let me sleep the same way again. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the slow, steady breathing of the man beside me. Mark slept like a baby, like someone with nothing to hide. Every breath he took made something inside me ache. How could he sleep so peacefully when my whole world was falling apart? The darkness felt heavier than usual, pressing against my chest. I kept hearing Clara's voice. "He didn't want you to know." That sentence replayed over and over until it started to sound like a curse. By morning, I looked like someone else. My eyes were swollen, my lips dry. Mark noticed but didn't ask. He just kissed my forehead before heading to work, the same way he always did. That small, gentle gesture that used to feel warm now felt cold, rehearsed, automatic. As soon as the door closed, I broke down. I cried so hard I could barely breathe. Everything felt fake, the pictures on the wall, the wedding ring, the promises. I wanted to rip them all down. But instead, I made coffee and sat at the table, staring into the cup like it could tell me what to do next. I needed to talk to someone. Anyone. So I called Lydia my best friend since college. The one person who always knew how to listen without judging. When she heard my voice, she instantly knew something was wrong. "Elena, what happened?" she asked. I tried to speak, but my throat locked up. "I found her," I finally said. There was a long silence on the other end. "Found who?" "Her," I whispered. "The woman he said was his sister." Another pause. Then Lydia said quietly, "You're sure?" "Yes," I said. "She's not his sister, Lydia. She's his everything else." She didn't speak for a few seconds. I could hear her breathing, trying to find the right words. "Oh, Elena," she said softly. "Come over. Please, don't stay there." I couldn't. I didn't want Mark to come home and not find me. I wasn't ready for him to know that I knew. So I just said, "Not yet. I need to understand first." The rest of the day passed in a blur. I moved through the house like a ghost, touching things that used to mean something. Every corner whispered memories. The kitchen smelled like Sunday mornings, the living room like laughter, the bedroom like lies. Around evening, I found myself sitting in front of Mark's office door. I stared at it for a long time before turning the handle. It was unlocked. The air inside was colder, as if the room itself knew it held something ugly. Papers, receipts, photos, everything neatly arranged, like always. Mark was meticulous. He hid things in plain sight. I sat down at his desk and started opening drawers. Most were full of boring work files, but one had a small black notebook tucked beneath some papers. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were names, numbers, and dates. Lots of them. At first, it looked like business contacts. But then I saw her name, Clara. Written several times, beside places and times. Restaurants, hotels, even her son's school. He kept track of everything. The entries went back years. I flipped through them, feeling sick. There were pages where he'd written things like, "Clara upset, need to calm her down," or "Weekend trip, tell Elena it's a work meeting." My hands started shaking so badly I dropped the notebook. When I bent to pick it up, another thing slipped out a photo. It was of Mark, Clara, and the boy again. But this time, they were on a beach. He was holding the boy's hand. They looked like a real family. The kind I thought we had. That was the moment something inside me shifted. The sadness began to turn into something else. Not hate, exactly, but fire. I couldn't keep living like I didn't know. I had to face him. When Mark came home that night, I was sitting in the living room, waiting. He looked surprised to see me there, like he wasn't expecting an audience. "Hey," he said, hanging his jacket. "You okay?" I smiled the kind of smile that hides everything. "Yeah, just wanted to talk." He sat across from me, looking wary. "What's going on?" I looked him straight in the eye. "I went to see Clara." His face froze. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. "Elena, what do you mean?" "You heard me," I said, my voice shaking but steady. "I went there. I met her. I met your son." He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He just stared at me, pale and speechless. "How long?" I asked. "How long have you been lying to me?" He tried to talk, but I cut him off. "No, don't. I want the truth. Every piece of it. Right now." He rubbed his face, exhaled. "It's not what you think." I laughed a dry, broken laugh. "Then what is it, Mark? Tell me how a woman and a child with your face are not what I think." He stayed silent for a long time, then finally whispered, "It started before we got married." I felt like someone had punched me. He continued, voice low and tired. Clara and we were together for a short while. It ended, but she got pregnant. I didn't know until years later. When I found out, I tried to help her, quietly. I didn't want to lose you, Elena. I didn't want to destroy what we had. What we had, I repeated, my voice trembling. You destroyed it the moment you decided to lie. Tears filled my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. He reached out, but I pulled away. Don't touch me, I said. You had years to tell me the truth. Years. Elena, I was trying to protect you, he said. I stood up, shaking. Protect me from what? My own life? I walked to the window, needing space to breathe. Outside, the streetlights blurred in my vision. Behind me, Mark kept talking apologies, excuses, explanations. But I wasn't listening anymore. I realized that sometimes the truth isn't what breaks you, it's the years of pretending that nothing's wrong. After he went silent, I turned back to him. Does he know? I asked. Mark frowned. Who? Your son, I said. Does he know who his father really is? He hesitated, then nodded. Yes. That one word crushed me more than all the rest. So everyone knew but me. Everyone but the wife. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I just whispered, you made me a stranger in my own life. That night, I slept in the guest room. I couldn't stand to be near him. Over the next few days, the silence between us grew colder. He tried to talk. He begged, promised to fix things, said it was all a mistake. But once you've seen the truth, you can't unsee it. I spent my days walking, thinking, replaying everything. And that's when I decided to tell David, my younger brother. He came over one afternoon, bringing food like he always did. But the moment he saw my face, he knew. Elena, what happened? I told him everything. From the first doubt to Clara's door, I didn't leave anything out. By the end, his fists were clenched, his jaw tight. I swear, I'll kill him. No, I said quietly. He's already dead to me. David hugged me tight, and for the first time in days, I cried not from weakness, but release. He stayed with me that night, just sitting in silence, watching old movies until I fell asleep. Sometimes, that's all you need, someone who doesn't try to fix you, just sits beside you in the dark. A week later, I met Clara again. Not to fight, I just needed answers. We met at a small cafe. She looked nervous, eyes red like she hadn't slept either. I didn't mean for this to happen, she said before I could even speak. Mark told me you knew. He said you two had an arrangement. I almost laughed. An arrangement? Is that what he told you? She looked down, ashamed. I swear, Elena, I never wanted to hurt you. He made me believe you were okay with it. For the first time, I didn't hate her. I pitied her. We were both living in the same lie, just on different sides. Before I left, I said, he lied to both of us, Clara. But you have his son. Make sure he grows up better than his father. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. When I walked out of that cafe, I felt lighter. The truth still hurt, but it didn't control me anymore. I had seen the worst of it and I was still standing. That night, I went home and told Mark I wanted him to leave. He didn't argue. He just packed a bag, looked at me one last time, and said, I'm sorry. I nodded. So am I. When the door closed behind him, the silence felt different. It wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. I looked around the house, the same walls, the same memories, but they didn't haunt me now. They reminded me that sometimes losing everything is how you find yourself again. I picked up my phone, opened the camera, and pressed record. I looked straight into it and said, my name is Elena Robert, and this is how I found the truth my husband tried to bury. Then I smiled. Not out of joy, but strength. Because even after betrayal, the heart still beats, and so does hope. It's strange how silence can become your new language. After Mark left that night, the house was too quiet. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock, and even my heartbeat. Everything felt slower, heavier. But I wasn't done. Not yet. He thought walking out with a suitcase was the end. For me, it was just the start. I needed him to face the truth, not just for what he did to me, but for how he'd twisted every corner of my life into something that wasn't real. A few days passed before I called him. My voice was steady, almost cold. "Mark, we need to talk," I said. "One last time." He agreed, maybe out of guilt, or maybe because he thought there was still something left to save. We met at the house, our house, the one we'd built with laughter and lies. He arrived early, like he always did when he was nervous. I watched him from the window before opening the door. When he stepped inside, he looked around as if everything suddenly meant something different to him too. The couch, the photos, the kitchen. Every memory was now a reminder of what he'd broken. "Elena," he said softly, "you look tired." I nodded. "I am." He sat down across from me, but I didn't join him. I stood, holding the small black notebook I had found, the one with Clara's name written over and over. "This," I said, placing it on the table, "is what you were protecting me from, right?" He stared at it, then at me. His jaw clenched. "You went through my things?" I let out a small laugh. "Mark, you went through my life." He looked away, guilt flashing across his face. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "That's the thing about lies," I said quietly. "They don't happen. They're made." He rubbed his face with both hands, whispering, "I was trying to fix my mistakes." "By creating new ones?" I shot back. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I could hear the rain outside, soft, slow, almost like it didn't want to interrupt. When he finally looked at me again, his eyes were wet. "I loved you, Elena. I still do." I shook my head. "No, Mark. You loved what I gave you: stability, forgiveness, a home to hide your secrets in. But love doesn't survive on lies." He stood up, voice breaking. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "You had another family. You held her hand while telling me you were working late. You looked me in the eye every morning knowing you were lying." He took a step closer, but I didn't move. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was done being quiet. "You made me doubt myself," I said, my voice trembling. "You made me question my worth, my mind. And the whole time, it was you who was living the lie." Tears rolled down his face now. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I didn't answer. I just stared at him, the man I thought I knew, standing there looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "I told Clara everything," I said finally. "She knows now that I didn't know. She deserved that much." He flinched, as if I'd hit him. "She told me you made her believe I was okay with it, that we had some kind of arrangement. Do you realize what that did to her? To me?" He shook his head, speechless. "I'm not here for your apologies," I continued. "I'm here for my closure." He sat back down, covering his face. The silence stretched again, thick and painful. After a long pause, I said softly, "Do you remember our wedding day?" He looked up, eyes red. "Of course I do." "I remember the way you looked at me," I said. "You told me, 'There's nothing I wouldn't do to keep you safe.' And I believed you. I built my whole life on that one promise." Mark swallowed hard. "I meant it." "No," I said gently. "You meant it until it became inconvenient." He didn't speak again. The sound of the rain filled the space between us, steady and cold. I walked over to the fireplace, picked up the photo of us on our honeymoon, smiling, sunburned, full of dreams. I stared at it for a long time before setting it down. "You know what hurts the most?" I whispered. "It's not that you loved her. It's that you made me part of your lie. You turned me into someone who was living in the shadow of your truth." He opened his mouth to speak, but I stopped him. "Don't. Please. Let me finish." I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to throw things. I'm just going to say this once: you don't get to keep me and your lies in the same house. Not anymore." He looked up at me, completely defeated. "So this is it?" "This was it the moment you chose her," I said. "You just didn't have the courage to end it." He nodded slowly, eyes full of regret. "You're right." For the first time, he didn't try to fight it. He just stood there, quiet, broken. And somehow, that hurt even more. When he finally turned to leave, I said softly, "Mark." He stopped at the door. "I hope someday you tell your son the truth, not just about who his father is, but about what honesty costs." He looked at me one last time. His lips trembled like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. He just nodded and walked out. As the door closed, the rain outside grew heavier. I stood there, watching the water slide down the window, and realized something I never thought I'd say: I didn't hate him. Hate keeps you tied to the past. I was done being tied to anything that hurt me. That night, Lydia called. She'd been checking on me every day. "Did you talk to him?" she asked. "Yes," I said quietly. "It's over." There was a long pause. Then she said, "Good. Now it's time to start over." I smiled through tears. "I think I already have." Before bed, I went to the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't broken anymore. She was bruised, yes, but standing tall, stronger, wiser. For the first time in a long time, I whispered to my reflection, "You're going to be okay." And for once, I believed it. The next morning, the house felt different, lighter somehow, like it could finally breathe again. For the first time in months, I opened all the windows and let the air in. The rain had stopped, and the sun was breaking through the clouds, weak but steady. I made coffee, sat by the window, and just watched the light spill across the floor. It was quiet, peaceful. Not the kind of silence that hurts, but the kind that heals. Mark was gone. The life I once built around him was gone too. But sitting there, I realized something: I didn't lose myself in all of this. I found her. The woman who doubted, who stayed, who cried, who forgave. She was still here. Stronger now, wiser, and finally free. A few days later, Lydia came over. She brought flowers and that warm smile that always makes everything easier. We didn't talk much, we just sat, drinking tea and watching the sky change colors. Sometimes, silence says more than words ever could. Later that evening, I took a walk to clear my head. The streets were quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you think. I passed by families, couples, kids playing little pieces of life that kept moving, no matter what happens to us. That's when I understood what truth really means. It's not just about knowing what happened. It's about what you do after. You can let it break you, or you can let it build you. And for the first time, I chose myself. That night, I went back home and looked at my reflection in the mirror. My face was tired, but my eyes, they were calm. I smiled, not the kind you give others, but the one you give yourself, when you know you've made it through the storm. Then I sat in front of the camera, just like I did the first time. "My name is Elena Robert," I said softly. "And this is where my story ends, not in pain, but in peace. Because sometimes, the truth doesn't set you free. It just shows you who you've always been." I paused for a moment, letting the silence breathe. Then I smiled again and said, "If you've been listening to my story, thank you. And if you've ever been through something like this, you're not alone. We all carry secrets. We all face choices. What matters is what you do with them." I leaned closer, voice gentle and warm. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe. Feel free to share your story in the comments section.